Good morning.
So I think everyone is in. First of all, I would like to apologize to you for what happened yesterday. So that I feel much better today. I got some fever though. That's okay. That's why I'm putting few layers of robes. And then yesterday, before lunch, we were discussing Punabhava or rebirth and reincarnation and the terminological differences and why the term reincarnation is not used in Buddhism, but rebirth is because of reincarnation, the term reincarnation, and its Sanskrit cognates like Punaruppatti and Punabhava were already in use by the time Buddha appeared in order to distinguish between what Buddha meant by rebirth, reincarnation. He used a different term, Pali Punabhava. And we discussed the two terms, Punabhava, so that becoming again, re-becoming, and that's Punabhava means, as you learned yesterday. And whereas Punaruppatti or Punaravatara is means re-manifestation or manifestation of the same personality again, but in a different garb, in a different way. And then so those were the things that we discussed before lunch. And today, let's continue our discussion, and so that please pay attention to question number 4. That is, explain the interconnectedness between Chuti Chitta and Janaka Kamma. Chuti Chitta, that's the last thought moment, and Janaka Kamma is the reproductive karma. And we discussed Janaka Kamma at length in our lesson on the fundamental teaching of karma. But because some of you texted me, some of you asked me to further explain Chuti Chitta here, because last thought moment. Now, again, if there is, when you look into the history of religions, if there is a certain concept that paved the way for the most arguments or debates or differences of opinion, it should be none other than the intermediate state between one lifetime, between life and between death and afterlife. Now, between death and afterlife. Now, most religions, I mean, every religion believes in a kind of afterlife existence of the individuals upon death. Now, Chuti here is the standard Pali canonical term that you come across that describes that intermediate state between death and the afterlife. And in people in believing in different religions, they believe in a kind of afterlife existence. And then according to some religions, that excuse me, that afterlife existence is heaven, or according to some religions, before heaven there is another intermediate, there's another step before that, based on how good or how evil the individual was during his lifetime before his death. Now, starting from the term, one of the ancient religion like Zoroastrianism and then Judaism and all the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam. And then when it comes to the Indian civilization, that is Hinduism, one of the oldest religions in the world. And then and the Native American religions, ATRs or African traditional religions, or and then Aztec and Mayan religions. So those are according to all those religions. By the way, afterlife existence was one of the themes that I used to teach when I was a graduate student in Miami. And so I had to study, I had to read like 12 to 16 religions, known religions, and then how those religions would believe or teach the kind of afterlife existence that individuals would encounter upon death. Now, according to whichever the religion, you name it, they believe in some kind of afterlife existence. If it is, there are few religious ideas during the Buddhist time, according to them, so that you get annihilated. That's one exception. Uchcheda. Uchchedavada. Uchchedavada, according to Uchchedavada, that means that is nihilism, Uchchedavada. So according to Uchchedavada, Uchcheda means complete destruction, complete stop, complete termination. That's what Uchcheda means. And then Vada means belief. The belief that an individual would not exist in any form upon his death. That is one of the well-established beliefs during the Buddha's time, and that idea predates Buddhism, Uchchedavada. So that is Uchchedavada is this annihilationism, or I mean is this a nihilism, and you don't come back at all upon death. So whichever the life that you are living right now, and then so that after your last breath, you would not come back. So that enjoy your life as much as you would like and you can, because there's no coming back. That's Uchchedavada. The opposite of Uchchedavada was Sassatavada, that is eternalism. Eternalism, meaning you are eternal no matter what. So that your Atman is beyond destruction. It continues to exist in some form, somewhere. Somewhere here means in Indian terms, samsara. And then so that is eternalism. You are eternal. And the opposite, as I said, the opposite one is called Uchchedavada, annihilationism. So that meaning you become totally how to say, you go to complete permanent extent. You don't come back at all. That is Uchchedavada, that is annihilationism. And then Sassatavada is eternalism. They were the two different, the opposite religious ideas. And then all religious beliefs except Uchchedavada would believe some form of afterlife existence. And then recently when I studied, studied some documentaries on Amazonian tribes, right? And then they would say their belief is that overall, that when someone is upon someone's death, their Atman or their soul would travel upwards, vertical, and there's a kind of palace that that it would enter and remain there. So that is their notion of heaven. And then even today, according to, so it is our genetic memory, it is our cultural memory. Whenever we feel stressed out, and then we automatically happen to look up the sky. So that is what we inherited. So that's the idea of heaven. And then I've spoken with the people from different cultural and religious backgrounds. At times, when I ask them, when I speak to them, when they describe their trauma, their frustration, depressions, loss of loved ones, whenever they talk about their sadness, at times, what they would do, when I ask them so how they feel, and they would simply look up the sky and say that my loved one would be somewhere up in there. The whole point of reference is heaven. So that is the genetic memory that we have inherited from our ancestries. And when you study the religious beliefs of the primal humanity, primal human beings, earliest ones, and they also did believe that. And then and then the idea of heaven first started. So according to religious and cultural anthropology, also according to some sutras in Buddhism too. Remember, we had a long discussion on polytheism, the manifestation or the belief in many gods, many deities, many divine powers, and then how our primal ancestors would consider natural occurrences in the nature, like the sun and the moon and the rainfall and drought, and then so that the floods, tornadoes, all that as acts of individual gods, and then how they would later on believe that given the pattern of natural occurrences, given the pattern of the nature governing those occurrences, and they would believe that there's no way that all those deities or gods how to continue systematically rule over the world without interfering with each other, unless there is another higher power above them. And that paved the way for the birth of the monotheism. And so that right from the beginning of our and how to say humanity, people would believe that they would and then they would believe in a certain type of afterlife existence of their loved ones, and according to certain ancient beliefs. And then to some people, the most scary thing in their life was that they got scared of the dead. And even today in different cultures, people believe that upon death, their loved ones would continue to, how to say, appear in their lives, in their surroundings at night. And then so that that's how the idea of spirit or ghost came into being. And even so that there is always, there's some kind of afterlife existence. When it comes to Buddhism, so that intermediate state is clear in Buddhism too, just like in many other religions, so that you upon death, upon death, you get reborn somewhere else. And then according to Christianity also, as we touched on that like weeks ago in one of our sessions, that so God created you, and then upon death, you will be called back home, quote unquote, meaning heaven, to be with Him. So that is, you go back to where you came from, and then so that is the universal belief in theistic religions, so God-centered religions like Abrahamic religions and Hinduism and other religions. So that the only difference is overall, anyone, I mean, the God would welcome you back upon your death, but at times, and according to Christianity, there's one instance where, in case the soul is too adulterated, if in case it is it gets adulterated, impure, due to its impurity, and it would be sent down to a certain place called purgatory. And it is very much similar to the idea of hell, that is apaya. Apaya, it doesn't let me type. Every time I type apaya, so the keyboard returns papaya. Right. Apaya or niraya. So apaya and niraya. So that you are, because your soul is not pure enough in order for it to get welcomed back in heaven. So that is sent down to a place called purgatory, and so that where your soul has to go through a period of purification for a certain period, and so that the soul would be then called back home, and so that is when. And then within Buddhism itself, there are differences of opinion as to how long it takes an individual's bhavanga or individual's soul, if we use the theistic term, or bhavanga. Bhavanga consciousness to enter a new life form, start a new life form. And then according to Pali Buddhism, immediately upon death, the individual soul, for convenience, let's use the term soul here, even though it's not used in Buddhism, because it's common, because we can save time. Let's say for now, for convenience, let's call it soul. Soul means here a certain essence, a certain essence of our selfhood that travels, travels to another life form, that contributes with itself towards creating another life form as it gets disintegrated from the physical body. That's what the soul is. Now, according to Pali Buddhism, there is no intermediate life form between this lifetime of which death has now occurred, and then the next life form that the bhavanga, the soul, is supposed to get reborn into. But according to certain branches of Mahayana Buddhism, so a soul would go through what is called Antara Bhava. Antara is interim. Antara is interim. there may be a linguistic connection between two terms as well, antara, interim birth or intermediate. So there's an interim birth between, so bhava means, as you know, to be. Before, as the soul has now disintegrated itself from the physical body, and then so that before it gets reborn, before it enters into another life form, so it may go through what is called an interim birth, and then you know, basically in Chinese Buddhism, you come up with this 49 days, the number 49 days, so that the soul would linger around, keep lingering around before it contributes itself with, before it pushes itself into another life form, so that that would be the end of the existence of that interim state of life. So that is basic one. But interestingly, in Sri Lanka, which is a Theravada country, so that when somebody is dead, people would get a monk to deliver what is called a memorial sermon on the sixth night of the person's death. And on the seventh day, morning or daytime, people would offer breakfast or lunch on the seventh day. That is called the seventh day memorial food offering of requisites to a temple or a monk or a group of monks. So that part, when I studied, there's no connection between the belief of this seventh day thing, but other than that, number seven plays a very important role in Indian religion and Indian culture. And then, for example, when you are sick, you wait for 7 days to recover, and then so that and then you do your prayers for 7 days. You meditate for 7 days. That's called lucky 7. And then there's no clear connection between the Pali Buddhist canonical idea that Chutichitta, or that the Bhavanga would move into another life form immediately upon death, and this belief that people must make offerings to temples on the 7th day of the person's death. But only one clue is that it would take you 7 days to recover from any mental disturbances. So that that belief is there especially within the Indian subcontinent. Because I remember when I was a child, I remember I used to be very angry when I was a kid. And then sometimes my mother would ask me to meditate for 7 days. Okay, in 7 days time you will be okay. And whenever I got sick, and my mother would ask me, okay, wait and trust yourself, and then you have to drink this medicine for 7 days. So this number 7 has a connection between our souls also, because I don't remember exactly where I heard, in some other countries also, and people told me that they would wait for 7 days. So this waiting period of 7 days, even though there's no clear conclusion of this 7 day, waiting period, probably some of you, because when I lived in Singapore and Malaysia, most of the time I would officiate 49-day memorial service for the dead. Probably, and then maybe some of you may know the importance of 49 days. In case any one of you know, I would like to invite you to share with me at this point. That would be helpful for us to continue this dialogue. The 49-day thing. Honestly, I don't have a clear idea of the 49 days. Is anyone willing to share some your opinion on that, about this 49 days? If not, we will continue. And then Chuti-Chitta, what happened to Chuti-Chitta? Now let's have some dialogue on that here. Now Chuti, as you know, Chuti means vanish or disappear. Yeah, that's great. I like Toshita. Yes. Okay. That's mathematical. Yeah, Toshita is saying 49 is still related to 7, at least mathematically. 7 of 7. Oh, thank you for that. That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. 7. Okay. 7 by 7. Okay. Then 49 days. Yeah. Again, it's 7 then. Yes. So then at that point, the primary number would be 7 then. Somewhere it became 49. And then Buddha also spent 7 weeks after his enlightenment before he started his mission, right? 7 weeks. Saptasati. He spent 7 weeks. And then, so thank you for that, sharing that. I like that this mathematical thing. So Chuti. Chuti, yes. Chuti is, yeah, because we also pay our respect. So whenever I remember that, when I was, when I lost my attention, when I was a child, my mother would ask me to count up to 7 with my eyes closed and then start rephrasing my questions or rephrasing my ideas whatsoever. And then so that even today, actually, quite genetically, quite automatically, when I forgot something, I would like do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then I would open my eyes and start. So anyway, so this is number 7. Is it's a religious. It has religious significance, as Toshita has mentioned here. And then, so yes, Chuti is vanish. Chuti means vanish, and Chitta is mind. Now, the difference between, there's a bunch of books on the difference between mind and Mana and Chuti. Okay, Mana versus Chitta. Sorry, Mana versus Chitta. Mana is the overall flow of our mind as an energy, as a continuous flow of energy. That's what mind means. When the mind takes a certain shape, certain form, and that's when it's called Chitta. So the Chitta in Sanskrit is Chitra. Chitra means decoration. Decoration, to decorate, to adorn, to change the, how to say, to change the garb, manifestation, manifestation, so that at that point, just like, let's say you play multiple characters in a drama, and then say you are now playing the queen or the king, and then you run backstage and then you change your costumes and then come back on stage, and you were the king. Now you are the, how to say, you are a hermit or an ascetic, or you are a monk or a priest, or you were the king, but now you are back on stage as the servant, royal servant of the royal family. You are the maid now, and like that. So that mind is mana, means the overall mind as an overall energy. So the mind is an incessant flow of energy. That's what mana means. Whereas when it takes a certain form, when it reappears in a certain way, and that is called chitta, like chitra, like decoration, adornment, change of garb, change of costumes, as though like in a stage drama. And so the chitta, in other words, is a specific form of the mind. So a specific form of the mind. Now you could very easily look at the vast ocean. When the ocean is still, it's a low tide, and there are no water currents, there are no waves, and then all of a sudden now you could see the huge waves, even tidal waves, and then so that while the ocean, the silent ocean, is like the mana, resembles mana or mind, and the tidal waves and the big and small and medium sized waves that appear all of a sudden, that could even pave the way for a tsunami or a tornado, is like the chitta. So, and that's the difference, mana and chitta. So that's why instead of calling it chuti mana, the scripture calls it chuti chitta. But again, what is interesting here is, now, in order for the mind to have an active, to actively affect the individual, so that it has to appear in the chitta form rather than mana form. And but what happens is, so the mind is, after chuti chitta, it is the same mental energy that you take, that you carry to another lifetime. But in order for the mind cannot make a decision in its original form at the moment of death, where it should go and get reborn again. So that the mind has to manifest in that specific active form that is called chitta. That's why we call it chuti chitta rather than chuti mana. So that's the philosophy. That's the term that is used, the philosophically correct, accurate term, chitta. So that nowhere do you come across a statement that it is the mind that is reborn, mana that is reborn, but the chitta that is reborn. Because the mind has to enter, because, for example, when you say you are angry, and at that point you are angry-minded, in English you call it you are angry-minded, right? At that point, when you say angry-mindedness, there the mind is not the mana here, but the chitta. You are acting, your mind is now manifesting, your mind is now acting in a specific way. And that specific way is called chitta. And that's what happens to close to our last thought moment. And some of you asked me to explain a certain term that I used. Let me type that in. impersonal consciousness. So that now persona, you know, the personal versus impersonal. When you say impersonal means there's no persona involved. There's no individual involved. There's no actual person or a man or a woman or a being involved. It is simply the consciousness is there, but there is no person involved. Now, by the time our mind hits Chuti-Chitta, at the Chuti-Chitta level, mind is no longer, how to say, the very person now who is about to die, about to breathe his or her last breath, has already died from his personality, from his individuality. His individuality here means individuality involves, contains the physical body, his sense organs, and then also it also includes the outer layer of individuality that's called sense objects, and then so that's together. So the corporeality and psychology, meaning physical body and the mind together, we call the individual. Now, by the time a person, an individual is about to die, about to breathe his or her last breath, so that by the time the consciousness hits the Chuti-Chitta level, and then the individual is not an individual anymore. And then biologically also, maybe I explained that too. One of my guru monks, he passed away on my lap. He was very fair skinned, so that and then I saw his nerve endings. He started dying from the tips of his toes, and then from the fingertips, toe tips and fingertips. I saw fingertips turning dark. I saw his toe tips turning dark, and slowly, finally, he started dying from his limbs first. The further a certain limbs was away from the brain, and so that the brain would disintegrate, disconnect itself from the farthest area of the physical body, toe tips and fingertips. And then finally he got his consciousness concentrated around his chest muscles, and I saw his chest shaky, and then he held his breath for a few moments, all of a sudden, and he opened his eyes and looked at me. I wonder whether he saw me, but for sure he heard me, because people remain more audio. The audio consciousness is stronger than visual consciousness, and people can still hear even though they don't see. He looked at me, and I doubt that he saw. I think he didn't see my face, but for sure, as I spoke to him, and then as he responded by squeezing my hand, then he opened it, and then he closed his eyes. So that and that moment, by the time an individual's mind, consciousness hits the Chuti-Chitta level, he is already dead from his personality, individuality. And then the last thing happened. By the time, remember I used another, what's that, another analogy before, right? Remember the dog and the master and his dog facing a car accident, and both are now breathing their last breath, and then why it happens in his own neighborhood, and how now the scenario, part of the scenario is that, and the neighbors now congregating around the accident scene, and how they are praising the individual and saying that he was such a good man and he should go to heaven. He should, such a good man, he should be he should go to heaven right away. He should be going to heaven. At the same time, someone else responding by saying that so good was his dog, the dog must go to heaven as well. And that's why some people are nodding in disagreement. And then so that at that point, apparently, now according to most religions, there's no way that even though an individual goes to heaven and come back to life, come back to samsara, there's no way that the animal would go that. But according to Buddhism, it's not the case. Even an animal could get reborn into a better state. Probably better at this point means by comparison, because overall, human life, divine life are the best. They are way better than animal life forms. But according to Buddhism, the point here is, by the time the consciousness of the dog and the consciousness of the individual hits the Chuttichitta level, they have already lost their identity as a human being and as an animal. It is simply so the dog's consciousness has now become impersonal, and then it has lost its persona. The persona is a reflection of the consciousness, and then so the man's consciousness, so that it has hit the impersonal level of consciousness. It is the impersonal because when the consciousness becomes, when the Bhavanga consciousness becomes totally impersonal, two layers disappear. You know, we talked about three layers of consciousness. Sensory, and then sensory, threshold, and and subliminal. Sensory is the outer layer, sensual layer, of course, sensory or sensual layer, upon which we use our sense organs to perceive the sense objects. That's what happens when we are awake in our waking life. And then when we are subconscious, even as we are awake, and at the same time, the intermediate in between level, that is middle layer, that is threshold layer, and it can still affect our waking life as we are awake. At the same time, our subconscious mind, it is called when we are awake, the middle layer of consciousness is called the subconscious mind. And then when we are asleep, it is still the same subconscious mind, but it is also called the dream consciousness. Because and then we continue to dream within this middle layer, that is the threshold layer, and that is called manasikara, the level. So that and then the deepest layer is subliminal layer. Now that is what is similar to soul in theistic religions. Now, by the time the man and his dog, by the time the consciousness of the man and the dog hits the Chuttichitta level, there is no man anymore. There is no dog anymore. It is the impersonal consciousness. Now it is active. And it is an impersonal consciousness would be fueled or how to say energized by a certain karma. It is a certain karma that pops up to the surface level of the Bhavanga consciousness that triggers your next birth. So that whichever the karma. Remember, during our description, our dialogue discussion on the Janaka karma, reproductive karma, we discussed how a certain karma, what sort of karma can trigger our next birth. It's always a karma, and remember we talked about different karmas. Now we talked about the fact that in case you revisit a certain karma, whichever that karma is, that may trigger your next birth overall. But at the same time, so that's why there is Buddha ethically encourages you, morally encourages you not to revisit the karmas that you have, bad karmas that you have made during your lifetime. It's always recommended that you revisit the good karma. Why? In either case, the more frequently that you revisit a certain karma, whether good or bad, you invite it to remain on the surface level, close to the surface level of your Bhavanga consciousness. But there are certain karmas that can override that process. For example, according to Buddhist psychology, now if you committed one of the 5 grave sins, you know, that matricide, patricide, murder of an arahant, shaking the blood of the Buddha, and also creating divisions among monastics, so that the hardly founded sasana of the Buddha, faces some disasters. So that why the creating divisions among 2 monastics is that grave, because that directly affects the Buddha's message. Because a bodhisattva, as bodhisattva, he sacrificed so much of time. He would, and then he had toured the samsara for eons of time, completing his paramitas. So that, it was after lots of sacrifices that a bodhisattva becomes the Buddha after many eons of time in the world. And so that it is the duty of monastics to take care of the sasana, and everyone is familiar with the sasana. That means the dispensation of the Buddha. That is about the Dharma. And so that is why the last one is that critical. So anyway, if you committed one of these 5 grave sins, and then it would be that grave sin that would override any of the karmas. And that when I say any of the karmas, quote unquote, could be any karma that you have revisited during your lifetime. Let's say, for example, you committed one of those 5 grave sins, but at the same time, and you were guilty, and then you have lots of people afterwards being guilty, conscious, and you have lots of people. But again, and you can make up your mind that you have afterwards, after killing your mother, your father, after murdering your mother, father, for example, and then you have like millions of people, millions of mothers and fathers or parents of other people, and then you will have the benefit. You will benefit from that karma later on. But before that, you have to get reborn into misery, like hell, because of the matricide or the patricide that you committed. And that is how a certain bad karma can affect your Chuti-citta or last thought moment. But another example of good karma is, if you are a bodhisattva, right? And then so that bodhisattvas are never reborn into misery because of their paramis. But at that point, you cannot be an amateur bodhisattva. You have to be an experienced bodhisattva, because there are bodhisattvas according to some schools of Buddhism. Bodhisattvas are essentially cosmic. They are cosmic beings. But according to Theravada Buddhism, one of you could be a bodhisattva who would soon become the Buddha one day. And then, but according to Mahayana Buddhism overall, any practitioner is a bodhisattva. But whereas when it comes to the worship of bodhisattvas, Buddhism, and then almost every Buddhist school would talk about identify a certain number of bodhisattvas, and there are, and you would name them as well. There are, it's like cosmic permanent type of bodhisattvas. But at the same time, again, on the humanistic level, and any practitioner could be a bodhisattva. And then so that if you practice your bodhisattva vows, bodhisattva path, and that can save you, because the bodhisattva mindset can positively affect your Chuti-citta. And so that while Buddha talks about, while Buddhism talks about 5 grave sins, at the same time there are other great meritorious deeds as well as opposed to these grave sins. So that and then so that it's no time to explain them. They are called the 8 great Mary. The 8 great meritorious deeds. It's no time to explain them right here. And maybe you can, when you typed, you can Google for them, the great 8 meritorious deeds. I know in Buddhist cultures, in Buddhist countries, and people want to perform some of these 8 great meritorious deeds, so as for them to continue to meditate on these things, and so that and then so that could come to their rescue during the last thought moment. So that the first one of those 8 ones anyway is offering of a robe, like Katina ceremony. Katina in Buddhist societies, people find it their fortune to have been able to offer Katina robe, the annual robe offering ceremony. And then they do that, they make robe offering, they offer robes to those monastics who have observed the annual 3 months retreat. And then so that when individual monks and nuns spiritually uplift themselves, and they also uplift the sasana. So that's the point here. When individual monks and nuns achieve a higher spiritual progress, and then when they spiritually reinforce themselves, that's the term, spiritually reinforce themselves within that 3 months period, and then they would have reinforced the life of the sasana. Sasana means the dispensation of Buddha as well. So that's why, according to Buddhist texts, when monastics come out of the 3 months annual retreat, devas or gods will welcome them by saying sadhu, like amen. And of course, the lay people do that too. So that's why people are eager to perform one of these, at least one of these 8 great meritorious deeds. And so the Katina is the first one on the list. So that I haven't done, and it is, and even monastics themselves are encouraged to do that. So one day, personally speaking, one day I will offer my own Katina to a monk or to a monastic one day, so that I have to do that myself. Myself being someone who has accepted lots of Katina robes during my monastic life, so I am eager to offer a robe to another monk one day. So that's how it is. Now, so as opposed to those 5 grave sins, there is this 8 great meritorious deeds. Now, those are the things I'm explaining, I'm pointing this out because that is called a remedy for your past karma. In case you believe that your karma, overall your karma is not so good, and so that the karma can, in case you believe that the karma will negatively affect your Chutta-citta, the last thought moment, and so that you want to avoid that, and so that you will perform one of these. But that is not necessarily, because so that is when it comes to the merit making and meditation are two different things. You know that yesterday we talked about the 3 essentials of Buddhist practice, and again I would like to ask you to remember when about Dr. Rahula's terminology, the 3, so that the practice of charity, and then moral obligation, morality, that's precept, and meditation, mental cultivation. I think those are the terms that he used in his book, charity, and then moral principles and morality, ethical obligations, and then mental cultivation, meditation. Now, even if you don't, I have, and then so in popular level, in popular Buddhism, what you all often hear is that if you want to take yourself to a better life, or if you want to guarantee for yourself that you come back in human form or divine form, and then you must perform one of those 8 great meritorious deeds. At the same time, that's what you often hear in popular Buddhism. But at the same time, and then you hear from doctrinally, on the doctrinal level, and also by purifying your mind through bhavana or meditation, you can guarantee for yourself that you will come back as a human being or as a heavenly being. But overall, these are the 3 essentials of Buddhist practice. While you have to, by performing charity also, you become selfless. You can reduce your attachment. And then so by observing precepts, you can transform yourself into one who is not guilty, because you don't any harm. When you observe certain precepts, those precepts become your moral backbone. And so that becomes your moral principle, so that you do minimal harm to someone. Even if you happen to harm, and all of a sudden your precepts will remind you to take few steps back, and then to correct your immoral behavior. And that's the purpose of precepts. And in meditation, that's bhavana. Bhavana is that is the first and foremost, actually, because I know for sure some people, some Buddhists, they would have already performed all the all the 8 great meritorious deeds minus meditation. Whereas I have come across some Buddhists who are good meditators, practitioners, but they haven't performed any of those 8 great meritorious deeds, which is okay. Now, these are the 3 great essentials of Buddhist practice, as Rahula says, is that so that what the texts, what the scripture recommends is that you do each and every one of these, you perform each and every one of these 3 essentials of practice based on the availability of your time and resources and all that. But one thing I would like to personally say, now you can very easily, for sure, sometimes when in order to perform charity, and it involves your finances, your wealth, and you need money also. But it doesn't cost you any money to meditation. So that while you learn the Dharma, and then even if you perform lots of charity, but one day enlightenment, you should have meditated. You take your meditational experience from this life to the next to afterlife. So the meditation is highly recommended. But as I said again, so that in popular Buddhism, just like in any popular level of religion, people are more into festivals, charity, and all that, ceremonies, and so that and then, for example, let's say I lived in a Franciscan or Benedictine monastery in Canada for some time with them, wearing this dark brown robes, and so they are meditation. They are priests, but they meditate more. They have a minimal social contacts. Like in Buddhism too, any religion would have this monastic aspect as well as this popular ritualistic aspect of religion. That's very common, academically speaking. Now, both are correct, both are acceptable, both you need. But at the same time, when it comes to in highly Buddhist psychological sense, now meditation is a must, because that's what helps you to clear your mind of negativities. So that can guarantee that you would have a very peaceful Chuti-citta. And then, because as you know, it is the same, whatever the thought, whatever the karma that takes the Chuti-citta over, and that would be the last karma that comes to the surface level of your consciousness. And that particular karma that is now taking your Chuti-citta over would be the first karma in your next life. It is the very karma that recreates you and then that reproduces. So that's why it's called reproductive karma or regenerative karma. It regenerates you. It gives you a totally new life form. It reproduces you. It recreates you. So hence reproductive karma. Now again, so it is the same last thought karma. That's the better way. That's better to say that way. The last thought karma is the karma that contributes, that has the role on the embryo. Now that the Bhavanga consciousness is now disintegrating self, separating self from the physical body upon death, and then it would go somewhere based on the karmic qualification, because the Chuti-citta is karmically qualified. It qualifies the karma. So the karma that occurs within the Chuti-citta, so that qualifies your next lifetime. It is based on that karmic qualification that you come back to samsara. And then when you come back to samsara, so that it is the same. So at that point, the last thought karma is that's called that's the fuel. So that it is the same karma. It's like the, how to say, an airplane. It's like the gasoline for an aircraft or a spacecraft. So that is the energy actually. So that that last thought karma is the energy that helps the aircraft fly, that the space capsule fly into the space. And so that based on that karmic qualification, it gets a certain life form. Remember, we talked about 4 types of births, right? Remember that. So that the egg born, and then born in the mother into the womb. That's called womb born, and then moisture born. And please remember these some terms, because in case you happen to answer a question like the sample question about the Chutuchitta, and you can very easily come up with the that would help you to maintain the length of the answer. Egg born, and the last one is sponte. Those are the 4 types of rebirths. So that when the embryo, now if you want, you can get this one, how to say, Mahanidana Sutta. Those are some canonical references. According to Mahanidana Sutta, probably you can take some, jot down that that sutra's name here, because as I said yesterday, in case when you answer these questions, for sure you don't remember. Unlike an open book test exam, you don't remember those actual references, but you could say according to this and that. So according to Mahanidana Sutta, what happens is, when upon death, what happens to the consciousness is that it descends into a mother's womb, if it is a human birth, or any mammal, any birth of a mammal or something. Yeah. So that's what at that point Buddha is talking about human rebirth in the Mahanidana Sutta, where he says that upon death, so that it is, this is the exact canonical term. Sorry, but I can't put the diacritics here. Matu Kuching Okkamati. Matu is the mother. Kuchi means belly. Okkamati means descent. Upon, so that upon death, the dead person's consciousness would descend into the mother's belly. That means Matu Kuchi means the womb here. At that point, the Buddha is specifically talking about human birth. So that's called, and then what happens? Egg born also, like chicken, right? So that now embryo, there's a different process. Now it is the same fetal process that occurs during the rebirth, right? When it comes to egg-born rebirth, at that point there are the extra steps, because the chicken has to take care of the eggs, so that there are extra steps. And then, so given the fetal stages of a new being, you can very easily understand the first 2 types of rebirth, egg-born and womb-born. Whereas the third one is very different. Spontaneously born means spirits, like Brahman, like Brahmas, gods, spirits, any astral beings, anyone with mano, because I can't put the diacritics here, I'm just putting the long pronunciation, kaya, mano kaya. You pronounce a longer. So mano kaya, that means transparent, mind-made life form. So that transparent or mind-made life form. So that's what that's called a spontaneous. Spontaneously means there's no known process involved. It's like meaning the Pali word for that is or by the time, maybe I think you already learned the terms anyway for general knowledge. Let me type the Pali, corresponding Pali terms here also. The first one, egg born, is under J. Womb born is Jalabu J. And then, so that third one is Sun Se the J. I should have explained the Sun Se just for that's the third one. Sorry about that. Sun Se the J. And then Opa Patika. Opa Patika. These are the Pali terms for those. Those are the corresponding Pali terms. So under J is egg born. Jala Bhuja. Jala Bhuja means placenta, meaning water. Now, Jala Bhuja means so that that's the placenta. So even in Pali, we say that breaking the water, water breaking, meaning being so that infant or the baby is now about to get reborn. That's what the Jala Bhuja means. Jala means water. The placenta. Jala Bhuja means born of the, how to say, wombs. That's called the watery birth within the mother's womb. Interestingly, Jala means water. That's the placenta. So the placenta is made of mostly, the highest content is water, right? And then third one is Sansedaja. Sorry, I should explain that before Upapatika. Sansedaja is Sanseda means moisture. Now at this point, it is the microorganisms like bacteria and all that, because there are differences of opinion as to whether all microorganisms have rebirth. So that one of the well-known Sri Lankan Buddhist scholar monks who is no more, who passed away like maybe 20 years ago, is Hempitta. Hempitta Gedara Jnanasiha. Dr. Jnanasiha, he was the opinion that microorganisms don't have a rebirth. They are simply made of the simple, how to say, life conditions based on moisture. But whereas according to, there's a canonical difference to the fact that someone may come back as a moisture-borne life. Someone may get a moisture-borne. At that point, maybe the certain bacteria are not included in the list, on the list. Maybe there are certain beings, certain living organisms that that are the result of Bhavanga consciousness from a certain person. Now, at this point, in order to see the middle grounds, we come up with this suggestion, canonical suggestion, that whatever the biology, that I think let's take a break and let's see you at 10 o'clock. So I just want to ask everyone a question. Yeah, that's why I just mentioned. So I'm planning to move to, not planning, I'm definitely moving to San Luis on May 30th. Yesterday I informed Marba as well. So that, thank you. So that we could, I'm going to stay in the Sri Lankan temple in Hazelwood or St. Louis, and also sometimes I will at times come more to Marba and spend some time, so that we will be able to meet very often then. So, that being said, thank you. Thank you, Juan. So that being said, now, the question that I was going to ask you is that I did send you, I sent you sample questions for the course on Introduction to History of Buddhism, right? I did send you.
I don't know if you sent them. We went over them in class, but I don't know if there was. If there is a document somewhere,
it's a document here. So what
no,
I'm going.
I didn't see that questions.
Sorry.
I didn't see the questions.
Okay, maybe I posted them on Slack. As far as I remember, right? Yeah. Oh, anyway, that's what I am to know. No, this is what I'm going to do now. So we will continue to discuss these questions so that we can reinforce our knowledge up until lunch here. And afterwards, I will share the sample questions for the previous coursework, right? And
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, previous course, because the thing is you have to, especially you need more attention to this sample questions because you are preparing for mock exams as in addition to the actual exam in June. But at the same time, I will also share with you sample questions for the previous coursework for the history of Buddhism. So, so that you can, I hope that you are starting to formulate answers for these sample questions, right? And that would help you do your mock exam and actual final exam more easily without pressure. So then, yes, Chutichitta. Any questions about Chutichitta? And we were talking about the life forms, right? Yes, different 4 types of rebirth. Where we were, so we did talk about egg-born rebirth, how to say egg-born, and then womb-born. Yeah, last one. Thank you. Womb-born, and then moist-born. Yeah, one Sri Lankan scholar monk who passed away like maybe 15, 20 years ago, Dr. Hene Hempitagadara Jnanasiha. I knew him personally as a novice monk. I happened to meet him quite a number of times and ask him to. He is the one who says that not all living organisms, microorganisms, have rebirth. Some of their biology, the biology of certain microorganisms are too simple for consciousness to survive within that. But again, in you come across in the Buddhist scripture that microorganisms are the type of so that microbes fall within the 3rd type of rebirth, that is moisture-born. But still, it's unclear whether certain bacteria and certain microorganisms fall within that category. Now, years ago, when I had a long discussion with some biologists, and we happened to discuss amoeba. So the life of amoeba. Whenever the amoeba has this, how to say how to say sexual feelings in layman's language, it would split into 2, right? It would become 2 beings. So that is even there are some single cell organisms, single cell microorganisms, certain life forms, and then instead of so that it is the same organism that would split into 2, thereby creating another life form. The thing is, they have this how the tendency of procreation or the sexuality, mating. That's the correct term, mating. The tendency of mating. Whenever their mind has the tendency of mating, and certain microorganisms would either get together, or certain microorganisms would split themselves into 2 halves, and that would become another independent being, so in layman's language. So anyway, so So anyway, that is the third type of rebirth, moisture-born, sansedaja. The last one is Opapatika. Of course, I was halfway through explaining that. That's when I noticed that I missed the third one in the order. So now, unlike all the first three types of rebirth include a certain biological process, whereas the fourth type, that is spontaneous birth, does not go through any biological process. When consciousness, upon death, a consciousness, and then upon death, triggered by a certain karma, our consciousness could come back, could contribute towards creating a life form which is purely mind-made, which is purely transparent. Examples are like devas, divine beings, brahmas, higher divine beings, and then other spirits, whether positive or negative beings. So that so they don't have, because they don't have a heavy dense body, they don't have a physical body, but except that, according to certain canonical descriptions, certain hell beings, certain spirits, negative spirits who are earthbound, they don't, even though their body is transparent, and then some of them are visible to naked eyes as well. And of course, it is very often mentioned in the canon that those who have how to say this, ESP, extrasensory perception, or those who those who have the psychic ability would be able to see those transparent beings. And one fine example is that as part of the Buddha's daily schedule, and then he would dedicate 2 hours or so between midnight 12 and until after 2 hours after midnight, like until 2 a.m. And Buddha would have the time allocated for divine beings or any other astral beings to come down and have talked about that. In one instance, one Putujjana, one ordinary monk, asked the Buddha whether he could see those divine beings. And Buddha simply smiled and said, not everyone can see them unless you put yourself in psychic mode. When you put yourself in psychic mode, then you can communicate with them. That's one example. So that whereas at times while one unenlightened monks remain confused as to how they come down, as to how Buddha communicates with them, Arahants or enlightened monks and those who are not yet enlightened but had the psychic ability would remain calm, and some of them still smile and they would know how to communicate with them. So now this is the psychic beings. Now they are the spontaneous birth because they don't go through biological process. No biological process whatsoever. And based on the karma, and their consciousness is triggered by the certain karma, and then so that they get reborn into what is called this manokaya. I think I typed that in again. Let me check. Manokaya, transparent, mind-made, subtle body. So their birth, that's the only type of rebirth that is that doesn't involve any biological process. The first 3 do involve biological process. Any questions about that? And then, yes, another thing about the Chutichitta is memory. Now, what are the 3 things that we carry within our Bhavanga consciousness when we leave this lifetime to another one? As you know, this karma, memory, and habits, right? These are the three things that we carry: karma, memory, and habits. Now, in case a certain memory had a vast impact on your lifetime, I mean, in your life this time, most probably, even if you fail to utter your past life, because in Buddhism, people believe that they can remember their past lives. Of course, there are some past life stories and as well. So that, and then even if you are unable to remember your past life, but certain powerful memories can still give you a sense that you did exist in a certain life form, and then you are now having not so clear an idea of what you were in your past life. Could be a vague idea too. And sometimes you have that idea, that past life memory popping up in your dreams. Now, and that's why I'm saying this is about the bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas. Once, long time ago, once in a Sunday school child asked me, how could bodhisattvas remember that they are bodhisattvas? That was a very fascinating question. How could? And that made me do more, how to say, research. And so that's when you make certain resolutions, those resolutions are so powerful, so they get so deeply rooted in your subliminal consciousness that they can subconsciously remind you, not clearly, not obviously, they can subconsciously remind you that you are a bodhisattva, that you are something. So besides the bodhisattva thing, I have spoken, I have in certain, how to say, psychological research that I done with certain people, and then so that the population that I selected was those who often said that they didn't belong to the kind of life that they are living. In their own word, they say, Bhante, I don't belong to this physical body. I belong somewhere else. And they don't have any psychiatric problems, so nothing. They are very healthy. They don't have any psychological issues whatsoever. But sometime in our spiritual dialogues, and they happen to share that oftentimes they would feel that they came from somewhere, and they would even describe. But in certain cases, some of them clearly could utter their past life. That's a different story then. But in the case of this population that I selected for my simple research, and they would tell me that they felt they would feel that they don't belong. They are something else, not what they are right now in terms of this lifetime. That could be a clue to the fact that they are now feeling, they are now having those subconscious, they are having those memories activated on the subconscious level. So they're given, going back to that bodhisattva thing, is that bodhisattvas, those who make firm resolutions, and they would know that they are bodhisattvas. It's like, now when you are a professional, every time you, let's say, when you are a private citizen, so that on the weekends you are a private citizen, let's say, and then you go to work, you are a worker, you are a professional. In your professional life, whenever you start your files, open your files and computer, and when you back in your job, back in your duty, and always you are reminded, you are always driven by your professional experience. That's how you do. That's how you do your job, your employment properly. Likewise, a bodhisattva would get subconsciously, even if not in the conscious mind, but in the subconscious mind, and they get directed by their past life memories. Now, that's how our past life memories can positively or negatively affect our existence. So that is because we bring those memories from our past life. And not needless to talk about karma here, but karma is the energy that triggered your rebirth. And when memories also continue to affect your life positively or negatively. And the third one, habits also. We also brought into this life certain habits from our past life. And sometimes those past life habits can affect us, our existence negatively or positively. So that is when they are called, you learn this term, imprints. Imprint is one single term that you use to identify all these three types of things that we carry from one life to another: karma, memory, and habits. Karmic imprints, and then imprints of memory, and then habitual imprints of habits. Perhaps some of you have already told me in private that how you feel like certain negative or positive karma and memories and habits have affected your life on daily basis. But again, so that again going back to the most successful way, and because it's a distraction, and according to Buddhist psychology, that is the necessary how to distract those possible past life negativities, like past life negativities here means negative karma, negative memories, and negative habits, is by meditation. That's why meditation is, again, as opposed to charity and morality, because charity and morality again helps you to reduce your attachment. Charity helps to reduce your attachment, and morality helps, precepts help you to help you maintain to how to feel a guilt-free life, because you are not a wrongdoer. But above all, meditation really helps you to fix certain past life negativities that you brought into this life with the Chuticita. And so that when you do that also, in case you were born out of a reproductive karma or a negative, a positive karma, but still, so that the positive reproductive karma is not strong enough to fight off the past life negativities that you have brought into this life, those three imprints, three types of imprints. At that point, it is meditation that would help you to overcome, get rid of those past life negativities. Now, that is why meditation is given the first and foremost place in spiritual life. So, and that's number 4. And then, and please go through the study the different categories of karma, and then you will please so that you will have a reproductive karma, and then answer this question, start formulating an answer for this question as well, the connection between Chuticita, or the last thought moment, and the Janaka karma, or the reproductive karma. If possible, try to remember some of these Pali terms, but not necessarily. But remember those standard English terms. And then, whereas I know for the mock exam is going to be, it's open book, I guess. So that you may use these Pali terms as well. But in the final exam, you wouldn't be able to, if possible, try to remember those terms as well. Now, adequate description of each and every one of the 5 aggregates. Now, what are the 5 aggregates now again? Again, we started our dialogue on the 5 aggregates with the Buddha's, the purpose that the description of 5 aggregates serves. Just like we discussed yesterday, now as Buddha has discussed that at length in the Satipatthana Sutta, or the discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, we are subjective beings. Again, we are subjective beings, and then so that spiritual progress would be very difficult for us unless we reduce our subjective approach to our existence. So that though hard, we have to try our best to choose a time frame on daily basis, and then revisit our existence, or reinforce our life, our existence in terms, from the objective approach. So that 5 aggregates, so that it's not the term 5 aggregates, as you know, is used. Just remember that one term that we use, deconstructive approach, that we just discussed yesterday. Deconstructive approach is the same approach as the objective approach. So that you are, so the self-reflection is possible, or the self-perception is fruitful or effective in spirituality when you revisit your personal history, look into your present moment and overall your existence. When you look at that from the deconstructive approach, from the objective approach rather than a subjective approach. Just like we discussed yesterday, whenever you are emotional, whenever you have some need, then whenever you are hungry, you say, I am hungry, I am thirsty. Whereas when you use the deconstructive approach that Buddha has used in his description of personhood or the selfhood, in the description of 5 aggregates, and then you don't start from yourself, so that you start with yourself being the object. So you become the object of your own perception. Just like your eyes, images that are visible, that are receptive to your eyes, naked eyes, are the sense object. So the eyes being the sense faculty, so the eye, the images are the sense object. They are the sensual objects. Now, when you use the method, this approach that Buddha has used in his description of the 5 aggregates, your entire selfhood is seen objectively, and enlightened beings can do that very easily. So they are enlightened people like the Buddha. They are not subjective beings, and they still do feel, as I said yesterday, they do feel hungry, they do feel thirsty, and they have certain needs in order for the maintenance, sustenance of their physical body and themselves. For the sake of self-sustenance, they would satisfy their needs. But at that point, even though I use the term satisfy, there's no satisfaction involved. There's no dissatisfaction, no satisfaction involved. And they are very neutral. They are neutral to their needs. And they don't break down in tears when they fail to get something. And they are not overjoyed when they achieve something else, something in their life. And so, so usually when it comes to joy and sadness, 2 terms that represents our negativities and negative situations and positive situations, are universally categorized into joy and sadness, or in other words, dukkha and sukha. Let's see. dukkha, and sukha. So joy and sadness. So that any positive situation gives you a joyful feeling. Any negative situation gives you a sad feeling. So, and then, so basically, these are feelings, and in between there's another kind of feelings, neutral or a combination of joy and joyful and sadful feelings, and they are called sukha, dukkha, and upekha. Sukha, dukkha, and upekha, or adukha, sukha. Adukha means neither suffering, neither dukkha, asukha, neither sukha, meaning it's neither joyful nor sad, but in between or neither. So in between, basically there are three types. All these feelings are sensual. Dukkha is sensual, so is sukha, so is the neutral feeling. But apart from that, how to say, Buddha also talks about a kind of sukha, sukha beyond sensuality. Sukha beyond, that's not sensual. So the sukha or joy, happiness, and dukkha, that is unsatisfactoriness or the sense of unfulfillment, they are feelings. They are sensual, essentially sensual. Whereas there's another feeling, another kind of sukha, that is sukha or joy beyond sensuality. So at that point, I must mention here that there's no dukkha beyond sensuality. Sukha is sensual in our worldly life. Dukkha is sensual in our worldly life. There is no dukkha beyond sensuality, but there is sukha beyond sensuality. That is purely attachment-free sukha. So in attachment-free sukha, now let's go back to Buddha being thirsty or hungry. Now, when I am hungry, so it is, I feel I suffer. So that is sensual. That's because of my subjective nature. So that I may even get angry. When I am thirsty, I don't get anything to drink. I am sad. Then the next moment I could be frustrated. I could be angry as well. So that's because that I become restless. That's because both when I get to eat something, then I am sensually happy because it's sukha. And I don't get anything to eat or drink. So that is my sensual dukkha. Now, enlightened beings have a kind of sukha or joy that is beyond sensuality. Now, that is called non-sensual, but again, they feel it. They have the feelings, but those feelings are not sensual feelings. Even though in order for enlightened people to feel, they must have sense organs, and they feel through their sense organs, sense faculties, and they also grab sense objects through their sense faculties, sense organs. But those feelings do not produce joyful feelings or sad feelings, and also not kind of feelings in between either. But they still feel, but their feeling is free from attachment because they are permanent. Because even though we don't, on the absolute level of Dharma teaching, we don't use the word permanent. Nothing is permanent, but conventionally speaking, so that conventionally, so the feelings of an enlightened being, person, are permanently joyful. They only have joy, and that is spiritual joy. But that joy is free from attachment, because there is no attachment, so that they continue to be happy, they continue to be joyful, they continue to enjoy, if I don't use the word enjoy, they continue to encounter happy feelings, joyful feelings, even when they are hungry, even when they are thirsty, even when they don't get anything to eat, even if they don't get anything to drink. And even in their life, there's no gain and loss. So that in their life, there's nothing called praise and blame. In their life, there's nothing called good reputation and ill reputation. In their life, there's nothing called joy and sadness. These are the 8 things we call the Atta Loka Dhamma, right? So the 8 things also called that's called vicissitude of life, meaning up and down. Life is up and then down. This moment life is up, the next moment it is down, and next moment is up. That's called vicissitude. Attaloka dharmas are the 4 things, and you know that the first one is now when it comes to the selfhood. Sorry, but we have to use the conventional language here, because that's why, remember, we happen to mention one term, ineffability, nirvana as ineffable, nirvana as being something that is beyond expression. That when we describe nirvana, we have to use the conventional language. So that's why we ordinary people have difficulty perceiving nirvana. Nirvana is beyond all the conceptualizations. But when I, as an average person, man, to whom enlightenment is far, far away, even nirvana is something that needs to be conceptualized. Otherwise, I wouldn't understand that. So I try my best to understand, to comprehend nirvana subjectively. To me, I'm not able to comprehend nirvana, to have a clear idea of nirvana objectively. Because why? I have difficulty separating nirvana from myself. And so that's why I happen to say, I want to nirvana. I want to see my nirvana. I want to achieve my nirvana. There also I have the subjective approach to nirvana. And even if I don't use to say I want to achieve my nirvana, quote unquote, I still use the subjective language as I say, I want to achieve nirvana. I want to attain nirvana. So that is so that my expression is necessarily subjective. It's very difficult to have the objective. But enlightened people use the objective language. So that their language is called the language of self-objectivity. Whereas my language is self-subjective language. It's not self-objective language. So then the purpose of the description of 5 aggregates is to give you a chance, to give you the grounds on which you can look at your own existence objectively. That's the purpose of the 5 aggregates. And you know, again, the 5 aggregates are divided into 2 groups, so that Nama, And Rupa, as you know, Nama is name in terms of untangible, because you can touch your psychology, you can see your mind, invisible in terms of Nama. Rupa is your material basis, your physical body or your corporeal reality. Nama is your psychology. Nama is psychology, Rupa is corporeal reality. So the psychology and corporeal reality together we call selfhood. Me, I am. But and then again, based on as you notice in the Satipatthana Sutta, discourse on 4 foundations of mindfulness and elsewhere, and so that Buddha further deconstructs self, the 5 aggregates again, so that Nama and Rupa, while the physical body is left, so that physical body is left intact at this point. Okay, physical body, corporeality is one single system, one big part of our selfhood. And then whereas our psychology is again divided into 4. So it comes to 5 components actually. If you don't, the 5 aggregates are the standard canonical term. 5 components of self. Because whenever you use the self in English, it's not clear. So in English, we would better to use the some selfhood. Selfhood is me, it's you, it's us, it's beings, it's living things, it's living beings. So 5 components of selfhood. And then so it's only one component that entails the physical body. And then the most of the components are psychological. So it is the psychology, Nama, that Buddha divides into 4. Why this? Because mind, enlightenment is all about our mind. So that the physical body is not further reduced to any minor components. Physical body is just left intact theoretically here, and whereas the mind is divided into 4. But at the same time, at the Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse of mindfulness, the physical body, it is basically in the Satipatthana Sutta that you come across a deconstruction of the physical body as well. That is called Nava Siva. Sorry, let me say that in 32 compo. 32 components of physical body. Now, so it doesn't occur very often. Wherever the Buddha uses the objective approach or the deconstructive approach to selfhood, with which he defines selfhood as being not a single uniformed entity, so that he can give you a message of impermanence, so that he does explain, he does deconstruct the physical body into 32 components in certain sutras, especially in Satipatthana Sutta. And then so that in order for you to give a sense of the impermanent nature of your physical body, so the physical body is divided into 32 components. And you can Google for that. It's no time for us. We don't need to remember those things, and you can later Google for that. So that that's called the 32 components of the physical body, just to give you a sense of the impermanent nature of the physical body. Other than that, elsewhere, so the mainstream, how to say, definition of is all about deconstruction, is all about the nama or the name, the psychology. Why? Because it is the psychology that needs to be understood as in order for us to achieve nirvana one day. So that's, as you know, so the 5 aggregates are, we don't need to go through the 5 aggregates once again, one by right. We don't need, because I think you have come up with this list many number of times. But please remember the 5 aggregates. At least remember the English terms. The rupa, that's called the physical body, and then second one is, you know, the first one is rupa. If possible, if you can memorize these 5, it's very simple actually. It's not a big list. Rupa is the physical body. And Vedana is the sensation of feeling, which is again threefold. And you may remember that feelings are threefold as well. How to say, positive, negative, wholesome, unwholesome, and neutral. Or neither positive, no negative, but in between. So that Vedana. And then Sanya is, Sanya, as you know, is perception that we discussed yesterday, perception. And then Sanya. And then Sankhara is karmic or mental accumulations. That is a certain area of your consciousness where you used as a channel to gather information, gather data from your perception. So that's Sanya. So that, and then Sankharas. So those are the, and the last one is Vijnana. So that those are the 5 things. Now Rupa is your physical body. Vedana is your feelings. Sanya is your perception. And then Sankhara are the ability, so that your capability, the ability to accumulate, gather data, information from the outside world, from the external world, and once gathered, and you make assumptions and conclusions, and you keep them for yourself, and then you store them in your consciousness. That's Vijnana. Now these are not in terms of function. These the last 4 psychological components of our selfhood are not independent. They are interdependent. Of course, the body and mind are also interdependent, because they are 2 different systems that are mutually interdependent. And then besides, just leave the physical body behind, and then given the psychological, the 4 psychological components of our selfhood, they are also mutually interdependent, because Vedana, Sanya is perception. So unless Vedana is involved, Sanya is not functional. Sanya doesn't serve any purpose. Sanya, when Sanya, meaning the perception, when the perception gathers information, and those informations are that information that Sanya brings into the mind, and they are again put into different categories as good, bad, or neutral. That is Vedana. And then and basically, and then once the mind gathers those information, so data, and there needs to be harbored, there needs to be stored somewhere, and that is done by, and that very process of collection or gathering, so that the data collection or the gathering of information is simply called so that is called sankharas. And then finally, and then you make some certain conclusions and assumptions, and then you put them into permanent folders of imprints in your bhavanga, in your consciousness. That is called Vijnana. So that is why, even if we can continue to describe the role of the 5 psychological components of selfhood, and then so that it would be always open-ended. So why? Because you can't understand the function of these 5 psychological components of self when you consider them individually. Instead, you have to consider them collectively, because all these, they are mutually supportive, they are mutually functional, their function is interdependent. So, and then, so that because of this interdependent function of our psychology, now they are divided. Buddha divides them, deconstruct them into 4 major components. So, and then, so that being said, any questions about that? That being said, let's go to number 6. And by the way, please again, when you, in case you had to answer a question on the 5 aggregates, and please try your best to remember the Pali terms. That would guarantee that you get the full marks for that question, because the list of 5 aggregates are too short. It's not long. Once again, Rupa, physical body; Vedana, sensations or feelings; Sanya, perception; Sankhara, mental formations; and then Vijnana, so that is consciousness of the gathering. So that don't force yourself to explain Vijnana too much, because Vijnana is one of the most confusing terms that you ever come across in the canonical descriptions of the 5 aggregates, because Vijnana is used for different purposes. At certain point, Vijnana is called, Nirvana is a synonym for, so the Vijnana is a synonym for Nirvana as well. And then you, I think this is called Anidassana Vijnana. Anidassana, let me explain that term. I think that is something worth learning here. Anidassana is a Pali word. Let me explain that. It's na nidassana. So that na is not. Nidassana is example. A kind of vijnana that cannot be explained with examples. Sanskrit word is nidarshana. Nidassana is the Pali word. Darshana is the Sanskrit word. Dassana or Darshana. Dassana or Darshana means vision, visible, visual. Now Hindus, right? When Hindus go to their temples, well, say, and they simply say, okay, they said, I am going to my temple for darshan. Darshan means to have a vision of their God, vision of their deity. That's called darshan. They go for darshan. Darshan is the darshana with the Sanskrit pronunciation. Basically, darshan, you know that most Hindu terms are Shiran. I know it's I think he speaks Hindi. So that in Hindi, so that most words are consonant ending, not vowel ending. It's all consonant ending. For example, when you pronounce nirvana in Sanskrit or nibbana in Pali, nirvana in Sanskrit, in Hindi you call nirvana. So that you call atma in Sanskrit, but in Hindi atman also. And darshana in Sanskrit and darshan is the same word, and you drop the vowel, so that then it remains consonant ending, not vowel ending. So that anyway, now darshana is something that you can grasp, that is visible to you, visible to your naked eyes or to visible to your mind. So that is called darshana or dasana. So that is so that darshana or dasana at that point is sense based. Now, when an image is visible to your eyes, so that is dasana or darshana. And when a sound is receptive to your ears, and that is also actually that is considered darshana as well, not really the visual things, even the things that you hear. That means dasana, that means grasp, and then dasana. So anyway, in order to avoid confusion, we will only stick to our eyes and the sense faculty of eyes and the sense object of images. Now dasana again is something visible, something you can see. So that is nidasana or nidarshana is the opposite. It's not visible. It's not graspable. It is not receptive to your sense organs. It is not even visible to your mind, to the mind of a subjective being. Now, I am not enlightened, so that whatever that I grasp, it could be the data or the information that the first 5 sense faculties send down to my mind, or it could be the mind perceiving anything else. Could be a memory, or could be a built-in mental tendency, or it could be a habitual imprint, it could be a karma, it could be a dream that my mind is now connected with, that my mind is now perceiving, that my mind is now receiving. So it's still subjective. Now, at this point, what is anidassana vijnana means? Now, enlightened beings are conscious. They are conscious of their existence. Now, and they are conscious of their existence. At this point, anidassana vijnana means nothing but nirvana. At this point, that's why I went a long way to explaining that nirvana, nibbana or nirvana is the vijnana here. If there is a certain area of our, nirvana means consciousness overall. Now, anidassana vijnana means here consciousness of enlightened people. Consciousness of the enlightened people. So meaning nirvana, anidassana nirvana. So that in the canonical description of this anidassana nirvana means how to say non-sensual vijnana means the very mindset of an enlightened person, meaning nirvana. So and that is the objective, deconstructive, objective, non-sensual, how to say, non-sensual consciousness of enlightened people. And anidassana nirvana, anidassana vijnana. So you cannot explain that state of the mind with examples. Hence, nidassana, anidassana, nidassana, nidarshana is example. So that being said, so That's one word for how to say about enlightened people. And then, so the next one is, let's move to number 6. Give a brief introduction, 3 marks of existence. You know that, right? Anicca. Dukkha. Anatta. And please read Venerable Dr. Rahula's description of the 3 marks of existence. To me, that is the best, the most concise and the clearest and simple explanation of the 3 signs of existence. Now, 3 marks of existence. Now, what is existence? Nobody is able to clearly point to existence. Now, if I ask you, when and if, or when or if I ask you to explain your life, describe your life, how do you explain that? How do you describe your life? How do you explain your existence? Well, you'd overall say, you always, you identify, so that you identify existence in terms of your experience, personal experience. That's how you describe existence, in terms of your experience. Nothing else, experience. Without experience, you can't describe your life or existence. If there is something else, is what about future? What about your goals, ambitions, dreams? They are future experience. A dream means a would-be experience, because you want to, unless a dream becomes, unless your dream becomes a real life situation, so it won't give you any sense of experience. So that's why at this point, now remember, we did talk about the 3 timelines of samsara. The past life, past samsara, that's up to the last and final moment that you just experienced, from the infinite past life up to the feeling that you just had before. Whatever you are feeling right now is your past. That is your past samsara. And the very feeling, very thing, something that whatever that you are feeling right now, it could be within the moment, that is your present samsara. And whatever you are planning or wanting or aspiring, anticipating being able to experience in the future, that's your future samsara. But all together, all these 3 timelines call one big, unbroken flow of experience. And this is called that's called the dynamics. Okay, it has to be the sorry about my spelling. Dynamics of experience. Pardon my spelling. I have difficulty typing also. I'm a little shaky as well. My hands are more shaky today. So the dynamics of experience, meaning, so we define our existence based on our experience. And then memories, our past memories, of course, our past experience are called memory. The memories is all about our experience that is gone. And whatever we are now going through now, that is our present experience. Soon, you will add that present experience to the list of past experience. And the expectations, ambitions, targets, so limits that you have set in your life, goals that you have set in your life, they are called future experience. So they are yet to become the experience, but that is your future experience. So past experience, present experience, and future experience. together they are called, so the dynamics. When called the dynamics means that the continuation, the flow of experience is continuous. It is incessant. So that is why dynamics. And then one Pali word that you come up for this, the canonical term is sankhara, sankharas. Sankhara, sang means some, together, continuous. Together, continuous. Khara, it comes from the Sanskrit root kru, to make, to do. We are constantly, incessantly making something. That means the khara means. You are constantly creating something, making something, formulating something. So constantly, that is an incessant flow. So that's what khara means. So we continually make ourselves, remake ourselves, create ourselves, recreate ourselves, and that doesn't stop. The only point it goes through a pause or a little stop is when the consciousness has to stop, because the body is no longer qualified. The conscious doesn't find the physical body, does find the physical no longer qualified for it to stay together, meaning disintegration between the body and the mind, I mean death. But again, the process doesn't stop there. As we just discussed in the description of Chuta-Chitta and the reproductive karma, after so the energy, so that there could be a little little pause to the function of our consciousness during the death, the process of death. But again, it would start continuing further, and that's simply called the sankharas. That's called the dynamics of experience. So the sankharas are beyond samsara. It's throughout the samsara. It's beyond this lifetime. It continues. So that yesterday we did talk about nirvana and parinirvana, where we talked about that. So that upon the death of an enlightened person like the Buddha, so the consciousness gets dissolved because it can't move any further. Why? So the very enlightened person had no interest whatsoever, no attachment whatsoever in coming back to life. And so as a result, and with the permanently terminating, with the permanent termination of consciousness, the residual karma or the remaining karma also lost a chance to bring the results back in life form. So the enlightened person does not come back to life. So that it's until that moment, until the moment of death of an enlightened person, and then so he also goes through what is called this dynamics of experience. But again, the experience, so that the experience of enlightened beings, the sankharas of enlightened beings, called this, so that that is called unqualified experience. What does that mean? Now, every time we experience something, what we do immediately is that we put it into a certain category. To that experience is either wholesome or acceptable or positive, or unwholesome or unacceptable or negative. Or at times it is something, it is an experience which is neither wholesome, positive, acceptable, nor unwholesome, unacceptable, negative, but in between. It's neutral. But again, a neutral feeling on the sensual level is way different than the non-sensual, non-sensual experience of enlightened people. Now, at times, some people have asked me whether a certain Vedana or feeling that is neither positive nor negative be something similar to the experience of enlightened person. No, because by the time we experience a neutral feeling, and then so that neutral feeling later we would qualify that neutral feeling. How? Oh, I can understand my feeling. I don't feel anything positive about that feeling. That feeling is not positive. That feeling is not negative. Whenever you say that that particular feeling, which is neutral at this point, is not positive, is not negative, at that point, you qualify that. Because at that point, it is a qualified feeling. I think you get that point. Repeat. So now it's clear that a happy feeling, you can very easily describe a wholesome, positive feeling. And even you biological, in terms of your biological response as well, when you experience a positive feeling, you would say, yes, that's my aha, the moment, and even expression of aha, so that describes your positive feeling. And then we go through a negative feeling, and alas, what's happening to me? So that's the way even your biological response, with your biological response to that feeling, negative or positive, you can barely understand the nature of that feeling. Whereas when it comes to neutral feeling, you may not be able to do so, but still you still qualify that feeling. You attribute certain quality. What is that quality? You attribute a certain quality to that neutral feeling by identifying that feeling as non-positive feeling or non-negative feeling. So always a neutral feeling is necessarily a non-positive feeling and non-negative feeling. What does that mean? Deep subconsciously, we want to identify that feeling clearly. We want to clearly see whether that feeling is a good one or a bad one. When you fail to do so, and still you wonder what that feeling is. Whenever you feel what that feeling is, meaning you are curious. So the curiosity, out of curiosity, and then you would say, aha, oh, I don't understand my feeling. So that at that point, you still negatively qualify that neutral feeling. So whereas when it comes to experience of enlightened people, now they have a totally different approach to their experience. It's non-sensual experience. They don't qualify their experience. Now, when I drink some water, I taste it so that if I am extremely thirsty, based on the degree of thirst, I enjoy the first sip of water to a reduced extent or to a better extent. Whereas when the Buddha is taking the first sip of the water, and then to him, it is simply satisfying his thirst. So there's no positive or negative feelings being created out of that. Whereas I do happen to, quite naturally, quite subconsciously, I do happen to so that attribute some value to that feeling that is created out of out of the drinking of the water. as the water touches my palate, my tongue, so I begin to feel the water. Okay, this is good water, this is bad water, and this is nasty, this is the best water, like that. So that at that point, definitely my experience at that point is clear. For sure, before I make some conclusions about my experience, I am the experience, and by the time I create imprints of my experience, and that experience, that imprint that I create out of the water that I am drinking, may create a karmic imprint, or may create and simply a imprint of memory, or it could be it could create an imprint of habit. In case that the water that I am drinking is the best water in the world that I have so far drunk, at that point I feel like drinking it again. At that point I am creating a habitual imprint, and I will later on I will look for the same brand again. So that's how it is. So whereas that's how we qualify our feelings, whereas enlightened people don't do that. And so that I went that far to explain just to give you the background, to the teaching, the fundamental Buddhist teaching on the 3 marks of existence. Now, what is existence again? How to identify existence? Existence is identified in terms of experience, based on that huge explanation of experience. And then again, we can't identify, even though we identify experience, our existence in terms of experience, still it is too vague for us to feel. So that is why Buddha came up with 3 standard terms that he would use to explain our existence in terms of experience. Those are the one, anicca, right? Anicca is, so what is that? Anicca is na nicca. Nicca is permanent. Nicca is permanent. Anicca means is non-permanent or impermanent. So impermanent is the word. So na means not, meaning that is the prefix im, impermanent. It's not permanent. Now, why is that? Because even if we know, even if we know in our conscious mind that we are not permanent, we have seen people dying, we have seen people getting sick, and we have seen people aging. That is probably that's our own, for sure that's our own experience too. When we go back to our childhood and come back to our adulthood now, there's a vast difference between ourselves during childhood and then ourselves during our adulthood now. But at the same time, the self has continued to be the same way, even though we see ourselves as the same person. In terms of identity, it is the same me. But if I ask you, how could you say that it is the same you because you are now 50 years old? What about I think you are different than when you were a child. And then you very easily counter my idea and say, well, I was a child, I had childhood, just like you do. Now I am an adult. See the kind of that's the expression. That is the subconscious expression of permanence that we put into words. Because subconsciously, as Buddha says, we maintain a subconscious notion of ourselves being permanent. So that's a very, very subtle, dormant sense, a dormant sense of permanence. That's what we find it difficult to grasp. Most of the time, we don't explain that. We feel like the same person. That's our usual expression. So that, okay, I was a child. When I was a child, when you say that. When I was a child. When I was a teenager. And if you are in after middle age, okay, before I entered middle age, when I say before means there was something, the whole point of reference is to your past experience, your past existence, before. When you say this, before, after, when, we use this so that when you see, I said whenever again. So when you use these terms, when, before, after, in your self-expressions, use these words: before, after, when. Now your whole point of reference is experience again. You can't explain your existence without reference to experience. So always necessarily it's experience that you refer to. Now, before that, because it's too vague for us to understand, that's why Buddha came up with these three terms. So anicca, not permanent. And then because we feel that we are not, that we are changing, that we go through change all the time, and that invites, that brings us some kind of disappointment as we fail to maintain the same physical beauty, as we fail to maintain the same clarity of mind, because we get angry, because we get depressed, because we are frustrated, we have difficulty getting rid of anger that somebody that we are having out of someone else who did something bad to us, because we fail to achieve the kind of goal that we wanted to achieve, because we fail to secure the job that we wanted, because we fail to earn the academic qualification that we were dying to achieve. And so because of that, so we go through dukkha. Now again, see, that's why they are called marks of existence. Dukkha is unsatisfactoriness, sense of unfulfillment, dukkha at that point. So they are, that's why the word we in English we call this mark, dukkha. And then what happens? We go through suffering, we face negativities, and then in our effort to, as we experience, as we live, so that through aging, through the changes that occur to our life, we know that even though even though subconsciously we want to be the same person, young, beautiful, strong person, when things happen against our will, that subconsciously maintain will, and so that and then what happens is that is the nature, that is anicca, that is the reality. And then anicca brings us disappointment, suffering, because we fail to fulfill our subconsciously maintain or planted idea of permanence or remaining the same. If at the layman, the wish to remain the same position, the same way as the young and beautiful and handsome and pretty person. So, and then that brings us disappointment or different kinds of negativities in abundance, and those negativities in abundance, that multitude of negativities, negative feelings is called dukkha. Then again, see, again it's a mark. And then what happens is, and then what Buddha says is, now, so that means our existence, there's nothing to be taken as how to say, there's no substantiated essence of our existence. So that's called anatta. That is called that essence unsubstantiated essence. You cannot substantiate. You cannot see a substance or the permanent essence of your existence. And that is what is meant by then what is called anatta, or na, sorry, anatta is na plus atta. So na means not, atta is atman, being myself. So that the notion of myself, or the reality of being myself, just to use the correct Buddhist philosophical language, the idea, the state of being myself is not, it does not have any permanent grounds. The state of being myself does not have permanent grounds. It doesn't have the permanent essence, permanent substance. So that is what Buddha meant by anatta. At that point, Buddha explains anatta in terms of the pre-Buddhist notion of Atman or soul. And then so that according to, remember the long discussion that we had on Atman and Anatman, but so that soul and no soul. But fascinatingly, Dr. Rahula encourages us not to stick to no soul either. So that, okay, soul and no soul. So that even we are not supposed to stick to an idea of no soul either. Why is that then? Again, we become hopeful of something. We become hopeful of existing in a certain way other than when we hear from the Buddha's teachings that we don't have a permanent soul, soulless. But when we, at that point, we always need to stick to something, cling to something. And at that point, we would cling to the other reality, the other side of soul, that is no soul. So that, and Buddha discourages us to stick to the idea of no soul as well, even though there's nothing to be taken as soul or permanent. But Rahula suggests that we are not supposed to get motivated by an idea of no soul either, at all, because then it would block us from seeing that our existence simply dynamic. It is based on our experience. So, being said, let's take a break and please let's get back in class at 1:30 CST.